So in here we have an example of recessive epistasis. So the flower color in roses is controlled by two genes. The gene capital R and the small r codes for red and pink pigments respectively. The gene capital A allows or inhibits, and the small letter A is the expression of the red and pink pigments. So with this, roses with no pigments will appear white. So in this question, we have two genes. The gene capital R and small letter r, and the gene capital A and small letter A. The gene capital R codes for red pigments, and the small letter r codes for pink pigments. The flower gene, which is the capital letter A, that allows the expression of the genes of these genes, and the small a will inhibit the expression of the capital R and the small letter R genes, which is the red and pink pigments. And this question shows that this is an example of a recessive epistasis because it has a recessive version of gene A, which is the capital letter A, and a small letter A that says no. So in my part, in finding the recessive epistasis, I have this kind of trademark where I wrote this as, in this question, in this example, I wrote this as capital letter A and a small letter A. The capital letter A stands for the go ahead. The small letter A will stand for no. And for the red and pink pigments, that will be a capital letter R and small letter R. The capital letter R will be the red pigment flower, and the small letter R will be the pink pigment flower. So for me to figure out the question, which is the topic of this epistasis, is kind of be messy for me, and so what I do is that the top gene will be the epistatic, and the bottom gene will be the hypostatic. I write it this way so that it will be just easy for me to figure everything when we answer the phenotypes of each roses, when we try to figure out the following genotype of the phenotypes of the roses. So because we already have this kind of illustration to help us identify everything with the question that we have here in the paper, let's proceed and answer the 5 questions to know what are the following genotypes of these roses. So the question that we have here is, what are the phenotypes of roses with the following genotypes? So let's just first look the first example, which is the capital letter A, and the capital letter A again, capital letter R, and the small letter R. So I identify this. We'll first look the first part, capital letter A and capital letter A. So in our illustration here, the capital letter A is go ahead, which is the dominant epistatic. So that means we will go ahead and look at the next one, the next genetics, which is the capital R and the lowercase r, which is the red and pink pigment. So when we try to see here that this is a capital letter A and capital letter A, and in our illustration here says in the epistatic, which is go ahead, then let's look the next one, which is the RR, capital letter R and the small letter r. As we look at here, it says that the capital letter R is the red pigment flower. That means that the first example in here, the first example that we have here is that the roses will have a red flowers. So again, we try to look at the illustration that we have here. We try to first look the first two letters, the first two genes, before we move forward to the next genes. So why did we move forward to the next genes again? It's because the first genes that we have here, which is the capital letter A and the capital letter A, means that in the epistatic illustration we have here is to go ahead and look to the next gene, which is the red and pink pigments. And as we try to look at that again in here, we have a capital letter R and small letter r, which means red. So to wrap it up on our first example, the capital letter A and the capital letter R will produce a red flowers. So in here we will proceed to our second example, which we have a capital letter A and a small letter a, capital R and R. So I already have an answer in there, which means that my video has been corrupt, so I need to film it again. But don't worry, I will still explain everything. So in the second example that we have here, again we will start on checking our epistatic illustration, which is, as what we can see here, a big capital A means go ahead. That means it is dominant, and we will go look forward to the next gene, which we can see here it is a big letter R. And our epistatic gene illustration, the big letter R means red. So we can wrap it up everything and conclude that this example will explain us that the capital letter A and the small letter a with the two capital R's will have a red flower. So the next example we have here is two small a's and one capital R and one small letter R. So in here I showed that it is white, but I'll explain why we have a white answer in here. So two small a's means it is recessive. It is recessive. And that means that when it is a small letter A in our epistatic illustration in here, a small letter A is a no. That means we cannot go and look forward for the next gene. So that means the next gene will not be expressed, and it doesn't matter if it's a bigger R or a smaller or any R's in this case, because it is going to be just white, because our first genes told us that we cannot go ahead to our next gene. So that means roses with no pigment will appear white. So the next example we have in here, the fourth example, is all of it is small a's and small r's. So again, when we have a small a's in our epistatic illustration, we cannot go or look to or express our next gene, which means this example is a recessive epistatic. And again, the roses will have, the rose in this example will be white. So we will move forward to our last example, which is we have a capital A, small a, and two capital R's. So the last example is a big A and a small R's, which means the overall expression of this is that it is dominant, and we can go to the next gene, which is the next gene is this. So it is go ahead. The next gene is small letter R. As we look to our hypostatic illustration, the small letter R means pink pigments. So the two small R's means recessive, so it's going to have a pink flower. So that's it. That's how we explain this question that we have here, this problem, and this is our answers to the phenotypes of roses with the following genotypes. So again, we get a red flower, white pigment flower, white flower, and pink pigment flower. So to wrap everything in this video, we showed what happened during a recessive epistasis. And to know more about epistasis, you can search about dominant and more examples of our recessive epistasis to understand even more. Because this illustration that I have here is my understanding of recessive epistasis and how I elaborate everything. So I hope you understand it, and see you next time. Thank you.